Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the JoyPad podcast. I don't know, sometimes we put a "the" in front of it, sometimes we don't. It just makes it feel more official. I am one of your hosts, Michael Pinto. I am joined by the full gang tonight. We have Michael Fleming, Tom, and Megan. And then we're just going to talk about some stuff like we always do. Instead of starting everything off myself, I, as usual, will pass it on to one of my co-hosts to hear what they're drinking, what they've been playing, and their general state of being, whether that be, their digestive system, their mental health, etc. Michael Fleming, you weren't on last week's episode. You didn't get to hear about my digestive issues.
I was on last week's episode. I was not
He
on
was.
The week before. Oh, man.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
2 weeks ago, I did not hear about that.
Sorry, time's an illusion. It's been a few days.
It keeps on slipping, right?
Time keeps on slipping into the future. Mr. Michael Fleming, what are you drinking? How are you feeling? What have you been playing? And anything else you'd like to regale us with?
You know, because you were there, and I told Tom too, but I was bit by a dog the other day.
Oh, no.
That was cool. I'm okay, but that still is messing with me a little bit. It's been on my mind a lot. But we did find out the dog has all of its shots, so I'm not going to have to get those nasty rabies ones and all those things. That's a good thing, because apparently those are very painful and very expensive. I am drinking some leaf juice, known as tea to some people. And I'm also drinking is it Omgang or Amigang?
Omagong.
Omagong. Well, whatever it is. Rare Voss, which is an amber ale with orange peel, grains of paradise, and coriander. And as the first sip, it's very tasty.
Grains of paradise?
Grains of paradise, yeah, I would say.
Hey, man, they had to go all the way to Paradise to get those grains.
Paradise, Kentucky.
It's just like regular wheat, but they got it from, they pulled it out of, heaven. Someone tries it. It's just it just tastes like wheat.
It's good. It actually is a very tasty drink, so I'm very happy with it. And I have not played too much in the past week beyond my normal stuff, so nothing super interesting. I have considered getting an NFL Madden game because Tom told me I heard they're on PC, and I didn't even know that. So I kind of want to play a Madden game since I've been watching a lot of football the past 2 weeks, or a couple weeks now. So that's on my mind to play, but I haven't done it yet. Otherwise, just War Selection as per my normal recently. Yeah, that's about it. So Tom, how you doing? What are you drinking? What are you playing? How you feeling? What's life about?
Doing pretty good. We got some bad news today that my dog may have a bone tumor, but there are possibly some options around that. He's an older dog. We adopted him as an older dog. We knew that, he might have some trouble, as an older dog does. So we love him. He's been great. He doesn't bite anybody. He just walks up to them, and whenever we take him to the vet, he is so beloved by everyone that we almost don't get him back because he's such a sweetheart. Just hoping everything works out for the best. It might just be that he had an old fracture. We're waiting on updated x-rays. So that's been heavy on my mind. But outside of that, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, which is this Thursday in recording world. You guys will hear this probably a week after that. So I hope the stuffing was good. In addition, I actually have as my beverage tonight something I talked about, I think on last week's episode, right? The Best Made Sour Pickle Beer, a product of Fort Worth, Texas. And I haven't opened it and I haven't tried it. So I'm going to crack it open right now.
Ooh. ASMR.
And give it a...
ASMR.
Enjoy that. And it smells like pickles. And they can see my face, and it's just kind of like, what is that? It's all right. It tastes like pickle juice, to be perfectly honest with you. It tastes very much like pickle juice. I'm kind of impressed. I like pickle juice, so I'm pretty pleased with that. It's stronger than I thought it was, and it's also at the same time milder than I thought it would be. Anyhow, in my
Beer
non-pickling, I haven't played too much. Played War Selection. Played a lot of War Selection, actually. I'm almost at my second country. But playing a lot of free-for-alls. I played a 16-man free-for-all game in War Selection the other day, which I didn't even know was possible, which was pretty fun. My wife has been playing a ton of Pokemon Sword, and I've been watching her play that, which has been cool, because she hasn't taken the lead on a video game in a little while. But she beat the main story, and she's working on the second DLC pack now. So it's been fun, and we just got her access to the Nintendo Online account. So I introduced her to the joy of the surprise trades.
Oh, nice.
And she's just as obsessed with it as I am. So it's a lot of fun, just kind of enjoying that.
Cool.
So from there, I will throw it to Megan. How is your general state of being? What have dogs done to you lately? And what have you been playing, and what are you drinking?
My general state of being is pretty even. I'll take it. Can't really complain. It's a holiday week, so I'll have some time off from work, which I think I'll spend playing games. As far as how dogs have been to me, dogs are the best. They're such good boys. That's one thing I hate about COVID, because I don't have a dog. I don't get to see many dogs. And I'm stuck with my 2 cats. One very unpleasant, one super dumb. But they're mine, so I'll take it. As far as beverage, I have some ginger seltzer this evening. Game-wise, I've been playing Demon Souls, and I also decided to start playing Persona 5 again, based on your bringing it up and triggering that part in my brain where I'm like, hey, I really enjoyed that game. Thanks for recommending it again, Tom.
I'm holding up a copy of Persona 5 on the camera as it just came in the mail recently.
So yeah, I've been playing that and diving back in, because it's like one of those games where I stepped away for too long that I need to start over to remember everything. But that's about it for me. I will throw it back to Mr. Pinto. What are you drinking? How are you doing? What are you playing? And what are we going to talk about?
I am a very sleepy boy. It's been a long couple days. Friday, I did the work. Saturday, I took a 3-hour drive down to visit Mr. Fleming and hung out for a couple hours and then drove back. And then yesterday, I did a 12-hour shift, and this morning I did a 6-hour shift. So currently, I'm drinking some bean juice, which I don't normally partake in. I'm drinking a Cafe Bustelo Colombian roast, which is quite good. It's strong, but I gotta tell you, I'm tired. I also got some water. Yes.
Is it the espresso Cafe Bustelo, or the other one, which I forget what it is?
Oh no, it's not espresso. It's just regular Colombian, but it's pretty good. My dad is a coffee connoisseur, and we have like probably 20 to 25 different kinds of coffee in the house at all times. So, yeah. Game-wise, I have not been playing much. I have received several invites to games, such as Among Us with friends and War Selection with friends, and I've just been too tired to play games recently, and it sucks, because I want to play games and be social and have fun, but I'm tired and grumpy and don't want to subject people to that, so I don't. But I would like to play some War Selection and some Among Us eventually. I'm planning on jumping back into Final Fantasy 15, replaying it with all the DLC. I've really been wanting to do that. And I also just purchased Visage? Visage? I don't know how you would pronounce it. Visage. The scary spooky game that Megan was talking about. Visage! That's been in development for like 5 years and finally just came out. Yeah. Did I answer all the questions? I think so.
I think so, aside from topic.
Which is what we're going to talk about today. So, I've thought about how we could do some, like, recurring topics, because sometimes we do, like, a deep dive on something ultra-specific, and sometimes I like to keep it broad and general. And this is one of those times where I'd like to keep it pretty broad, and I feel like this is a subject that we could speak on probably multiple times over multiple episodes, because I'm sure we all have a lot of examples. I'd like to talk about some of our favorite levels and or locales in video games. And that, I mean, could be, when you think about a level, you're thinking about like a platforming game, or, a 3D adventure game, like the first level of Sonic Adventure, where Sonic falls out of a helicopter and you get to listen to Escape from the City, and it's awesome, even though people don't like to talk about how Sonic's awesome, but he really is. Or like, in Fleming's case, I was thinking like, there's probably one or two like StarCraft maps that he's like, ooh, I'm not allowed to say that. Ooh. I friggin' love this map.
What have you done?
Everyone gets one. It'll be bleeped.
Sleep has done terrible.
Yeah. So, I think we all have a couple, and we can just kind of name some, or obviously go into more detail about them. For me, I wanted to actually start off with a StarCraft 2 map that I really liked. That was called... Oh god, was it Abyssal City? I think it was an underwater map, which was really cool because it's a concept that they didn't explore very much. I always kind of liked the more outlier maps. I understand why they don't do snow maps, because it's hard on people's eyes. So for a professional player, they don't want to play on a snow map because they can't focus on it for as long if they're doing a long marathon session. But I really think it was called like Abyssal City or Abyssal Reef or something like that. Things would explode, and all the bits and bubbles would like float upwards, which was a really cool detail. I see Fleming like looking it up right now, I think.
I was not looking that up, but I had a comment on something you said. You keep going with your thing while I find out the name of it.
And again, like, I was never a great StarCraft 2 player, at least on my own. I tended to play more team games with Tom and Fleming and some of our other friends. At one point, I don't know if we've ever mentioned this, but Fleming and I were very hardcore into the 2v2 scene that was like non-existent. But we were one of the top 100 best teams in the entire world for a little while. We tried very hard, and it was mostly him that did the work. But I was along for the ride, and it made me feel cool to see our names up there. But, StarCraft is not a team game. So nothing really came of it, and now we're both too frustrated with life to play it.
StarCraft just takes a lot of work, I mean, as we know. But the one thing that you said that was interesting to me, and I tried to find the map. I looked up the YouTube video. It's still very much available. But in StarCraft, there was a massive rivalry between Jaedong and Flash. Anyone that knows anything about StarCraft knows those two names and knows their rivalry from about that 2010 era, somewhere in that time frame, a little before, a little after. But they played at the 2010 WCG finals, and you said, no snow maps or no tundra maps, and I can't remember the name of the map, but it was one of my favorite maps. It's one of my favorite games. You can go on YouTube and type in WCG 2010 set 2 or game 2, Flash vs. Jaedong. It was actually the semifinals, not the finals, excuse me. But that map was tundra. It had a little bit of snow in it, and it's my favorite map with two of my favorite players from an era where like I was very much fully devoted to StarCraft. So I know what you're talking about when you talk about specific levels and everything. And for me, that's where most of mine are, those competitive aspects. Same as what I was going to talk about is more of like first person shooter games. So Counter-Strike, again, a very map driven game. Balance can be shifted based on the map and the team's play styles and that. So again, anyone that you talk to that played Counter-Strike knows things like Mirage or Dust 2. And if you talk to someone about like CPL Mill, which is a map from like 2006, 2007 timeframe, around that time, like anyone that kind of can remember what that map looks like. In fact, there's an old YouTube video called Door Stuck from CPL Mill. You can look it up. It's pretty funny in the SCA pub match. But, it's those kind of things where like you say those names to people and you're like, oh yes. And it's much easier in a game like Counter-Strike versus StarCraft.
Oh my God, so you just sent a surge of memory through me, and not 100% for Counter-Strike, but back in the day when I was the most casual Counter-Strike player you've ever met, there used to be a mode that had some sort of like, I want to say it had some kind of like Star Wars theme to it, and you would like float through space into the map, and then you would get points over time, and you could buy like superpowers that you could use. Like one of them let you swing around like Spider-Man and all that fun stuff. And it wasn't the map so much that was fun, but like the powers in that one. But what that reminded me of was there was actually a mod for Counter-Strike called the Specialists. And it wasn't super widely played, but I was really into it for a while. And the entire idea of it was to kind of take on a lot of the movies that use like wire fu kind of stuff and build like a Counter-Strike kind of deathmatch situation around that. So you had, they made a character that was Gordon from Half-Life in like a Matrix trench coat, was like the flagship character. And the main stage that you would see the most of was called Lobby, and it was modeled after like the famous The Matrix lobby scene where there are metal detectors and the guns and they shoot up the agents and all that. You could play as like an agent looking guy too. But it had a slow-mo mechanic to it and a diving mechanic, and it had swords and a whole bunch of different guns. You could do dual pistols, all this kind of stuff. But you got style points for killing people. So like if you killed someone while you were doing a dive, you would get like 2 or 3 points instead of just 1 for just getting one while you were running around. I think you got 2 points for doing a sword, stuff like that. But like that level and just the iconic scene of like playing in that area, it had the helicopter. You could do this long dive from like a skyscraper to where the helicopter was. Oh, it was so much fun for like a competitive play set.
Well, those public maps, even I began, as most people do, as a public Counter-Strike scrub on the public servers and all of that. In 15 versus 15 rounds and those kind of things. But I remember maps like DE Rats. Anyone that's played Counter-Strike might remember that. Really popular back in 1.5 and 1.6, right around then, 2005 or so. But there's, it's funny that, Penta, you mentioned StarCraft, but like you almost couldn't remember the name. You could remember more the style of map. Because like that's my biggest problem with StarCraft versus like Counter-Strike. I clearly remember the Counter-Strike maps because it's just so many games, thousands of games and rounds and everything, playing the map over and over. StarCraft, because the maps change so much and they try new things, and the names are also really weird. Like, it's harder to put a name to those because they always have like a phrase almost. The ones that I think people most commonly would know are the maps that kind of came out early on, so or have very long longevity. So like Fighting Spirit from StarCraft Brood War. Everyone that's played competitive StarCraft remembers Fighting Spirit. Lost Temple, another great example. That's from the original StarCraft though. And then in StarCraft 2, people would probably remember like Steps of War as the first competitive map where you had people doing like Thor rushes and roach rushes and all kinds of crazy stuff because the map was definitely not designed very well for competitive play.
Hey, I remember one non-competitive map, and that is Big Game Hunters.
Oh, absolutely. Hundreds of probably millions of people would remember Big Game Hunters in particular because of again, thousands of hours of repetitive play on that one map alone. Same as Fast as Possible map, another example of from StarCraft where people are all going to know that game. Let's turn it from competitive though, because like I also think I don't play as many like RPGs or other kinds of adventure games, but one, Pinto, when you suggested this topic, is that I love when there's a game that kind of tries to base itself on being realistic, and they try to actually portray that city or that town or whatever it might be in the game, and they actually really try to make the map feel like you're in that location. So for me, in The Last of Us, when you go to Pittsburgh, you know, that's an iconic one for me where I'm like, this actually feels like I'm in Pittsburgh right now. And like the idea of it having kind of been taken over by nature again really stood out to me as a really fun part of that game and really iconic.
Boy, have you played Fallout 3 or any of the other Fallout games?
Yeah, I was
No,
just
I
thinking
haven't
Fallout
played
4.
But Fallout's another example of that. Absolutely, I know that.
Fallout 3 is like centered around DC, and just the way you see the impact on so many of those structures is really cool. Fallout 4, I you know what, when they said it was going to be Boston, I was like, that's super cool. And then I realized I wasn't really familiar with a whole lot of like Boston architecture. And, you know, it doesn't have the same landmarks as Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Vegas was really cool. New Vegas was cool just because the casino theme, and then a lot of the California theme too, because you get into that sort of area. And even the deserts and the sort of Native American culture they weaved in there. That was really cool. I wasn't thinking about the Fallout game series, but those have done an incredible job with a lot of the levels. And, you know, that's more environment to me than specific kind of level design, like a specific kind of encounter dungeon or something like that. Not to nitpick. Yeah, I mean, I think there probably are specific dungeons in there which I could dive into. I think it's the Jefferson Memorial at the end of Fallout 3 where they do the water purification. They build a water purification plant out of one of the iconic memorials, and I think it's the Jefferson Memorial. So you kind of see like the statue of Jefferson sitting there, and then there's just all these pipes running around him and like factory machinery in the back and stuff. It's just really interesting from that perspective.
I'm just thinking about a little game called Donkey Kong Country.
I'm glad you are, because I thought. All right, I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you finish in 1 second, but
He's gonna let you finish.
I'm gonna let you finish.
While I was thinking about this topic, I thought of like a number of games. It's like, I love the level design in these games. I can't recall anything specific, and Donkey Kong was like peak in my mind. So anyway, go on, Megan. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Specifically, I think it was Minecart Carnage, where like right when you enter the mine, you jump into the barrel and you're shot into a minecart. Just all of the gaps and the weird jumps that you need to make, and the enemies that can attack you, and like. They're just so silly and fun, and the music is great. The environments are cool looking. Like Donkey Kong Country, I think, is one of my favorite games for level design. Or I can't remember the name of the level, but you play as, like, you find your swordfish friend that helps you get through, the underwater maze.
The water levels had the best music.
They really did.
The swordfish in general was great just because he could like poke everything with the needle, and like you would see him pop and blow up. But like, what was it that you were trying to navigate around, like pufferfish or something?
I think there were sharks.
There were piranha, sharks, barracudas.
Yeah.
Clams.
Barracuda.
Oh yes, the giant.
I remember the
giant clam.
I can't think of any particular stage again, but I just remember loving Donkey Kong Country 3. Where you had Trixie Kong who could float with like by spinning the hair,
her pigtails or whatever.
Oh,
yeah.
So cool. And then Kitty Kong, who was just a big fat baby.
Yes. Those were fun games.
I 105%ed that game years and years ago, and I have no desire to ever play it again, I think.
That's fair.
5%. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't know how you
I know.
5% something.
I don't know why games do that, but that definitely was a thing.
Because 100 is not good enough.
A game.
It's not.
Yeah. You got to give 105%.
Around the same time of those games, a game I've mentioned, I believe, a few times on the call, or on the podcast, excuse me, but also just in general talking with you guys.
Titanic Adventure Out of Time?
Sure, yes, that one too. That is obviously a very iconic.
It obviously captured the historical period of
it did pretty well for a game from like 97, and we still are going to play that at some point on the JoyPad YouTube channel. Check it out. But what I was actually thinking of was Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Oh, yeah.
Because in large part, the one I was thinking of was the Great Mighty Pooh, which you can certainly go find the YouTube video of someone playing and beating that boss. But like, there's so many iconic people and maps and battles that you have to do through that, and then there's like multiplayer. With that game, like I don't remember what exactly it was called, but I know that you could play basically the equivalent of a D-Day, where you're trying to storm the beaches and take the pillboxes. I still remember that. I haven't played Conker's Bad Fur Day in years, but that was such a fun thing to do with my friends as a kid. So that game, I think music plays a part. We've kind of mentioned sometimes, like in water maps, the music plays a part. I think that those kind of situations too. There's like, I think the blend of music with the environment that you're in really can help put it in your mind almost permanently in the future.
You just made me realize I was thinking a ton about RPGs when I was first thinking about this topic, and I missed like the greatest low-hanging fruit of all time, which is Mario Kart.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Like
Any of them, really.
Rainbow
any
Road?
of them. Rainbow
Yep.
Road is exactly the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Just like all the twists and turns, and then knowing the secret passages where you can just take those invisible roads.
But you need to have
Oh
a
my God.
mushroom to hit them,
Yep.
in a couple of them. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the level design in Mario Kart from the original all the way through, but I would say especially in the original, was just exquisite in the way that it captured. Well, I say the original. I'm speaking about 64, not the Super Nintendo game. It's exquisite in the way that it captured the Mario spirit and turned it into NASCAR, right? Like the Wario stage that has all those dirt jumps and is, basically Truckosaurus.
Bowser's Castle.
Mario Kart, Bowser's Castle. Very, very Mario. I love the Dry Bones stage in the desert, where, it really kind of focuses on that feeling of Mario when you're in that, you have the angry sun chasing you in the dry bones in the deserts, but you're racing. There's a train, there's all that fun stuff. So, incredible. I mean, Mario is always incredible, but the level designs are really
Well,
great
you
in
mentioned Mario, and then you kind of hinted on RPGs. The water part of Mario 64, where you go down to like the ship.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't played that game in
Dire
forever.
Docks.
Yes, Dire
Yep.
Docks. Like, I think of that game, and like, I have not played that game probably in 20 years, if not a little longer than that. But I still remember them. Like, if someone played the music, I instantly know what it's from. If like someone showed me a screenshot and took out Mario, I still would know what it's from. Just because, again, an iconic moment of that game. And like, I remember being fascinated how, like, as a little kid, how far games were coming and like letting me explore something from a 3D environment and everything. Just
We're
really
so
fascinating.
advanced.
So cool. And all the kids now are probably like, every game does that now. But you don't understand unless you were there.
Yeah.
I think is the thing.
Take that, children.
Yeah.
You'll never know.
Back in my day.
I mean, it's funny though, like Mario Kart, Mario 64, no matter what Mario it is, it always seems like there's level innovation in Mario. And I was thinking about this earlier, but like, I wouldn't say the generic Mario games. So thinking about like Super Mario World 1, 2, 3 on the Super Nintendo and NES, little bit, you get your underwater worlds, you get your raccoon tail where you can fly up a little bit. But what really hit me was Super Mario Land 2 on the original Game Boy, which actually was subtitled 6 Golden Coins, which I had to remember by Googling earlier. But the one world that really stuck out to me is you get to go to the moon, and it affects the physics of Mario's jumping and like what a lot of the enemies were, and he had to wear a spacesuit and all this stuff. And there's another world where Mario is like super small and everything else is huge, and like all of these different worlds that really played with what it was to be Mario in a Mario game. I thought that was really cool, and it's kind of a forgotten game among all the rest of the Marios too. So I highly recommend it. You can beat it in probably 3 hours on a Game Boy.
Not for like a specific level in general, but just the general environment and locale. I like to think about the BioShock games, especially, what was it, BioShock Infinite with New Columbia. Just that steampunky, futuristic, city in the sky vibe that it had. That was a lot of fun.
You like flying around on skyhooks?
I do.
That game was so good.
It was. I love the series in general.
Are they ever going to make another one?
Yes. They are still working on things, and the lead, I don't know what you would call him, from the studio that does BioShock, he's like gotten permission to work on both BioShock and some other project that he really wants to do.
Interesting.
So I think there's something in the works, but like everything, who knows when it will come out.
No, that's great news. I mean, my wife and I recently played through the whole BioShock collection, 1, 2, and Infinite, and I mean, it's just such a good series. The level design is like immaculate from the beginning. Just with the idea of what's the underwater city called, Atlas or something like that?
I looked it up before this and I can't remember.
I'm
I'll Google it.
But anyway, like the idea of that and the idea of the kind of capitalism run amok, and then people losing their mind when things don't go the utopian way that they expected it to. It's really fun to explore, especially with superpowers.
Rapture,
that's it.
Yeah.
What was Atlas figures in there somewhere? I just forget how.
That might be in Infinite, but I don't remember. It's been a while since I've played them all.
I like those unique environments where somebody is kind of like toyed with the idea of something that could be normal, like an underwater city, a cloud city. It's very interesting. Of the same token, and blending that with what I was talking about earlier with Mario games, there is so much in Super Mario RPG that does that kind of stuff. You have Mallow's Cloud Kingdom. You have the Star Road with Geno. You guys were talking about the underwater level in Super Mario Super Mario 64. But the pirate ship was actually what I thought of from Super Mario RPG.
Yeah.
Where you had to solve the riddle with the messages in the bottle and all the different puzzles. And I just remember playing that like a Christmas Eve at like 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep because I was too excited for Christmas Day. And just playing that for like 3 hours while I waited for my parents to wake up. But the number one thing, two things really stuck out to me. Number 2 was Yoshi Island, which you had to go through some secrets to unlock.
Yep.
Not that it was a huge area, but just seeing all those Yoshis in one place doing their races, I can still remember all the music. It's just iconic, you know? And then the next one was Booster Tower with a strange Mario villain that has never, ever seen the light of day ever again. Probably because he looks almost exactly like Wario with a giant beard as a Viking, who would just have random family portraits and hide behind them and hope that you didn't catch him as you tried to get Princess Toadstool off of the giant cake that he made.
Pinto, help me with my memory. The Final Fantasy 15, the island that you need to travel to, what is that named?
Altissia.
Altissia. I really liked Altissia. I thought it was just, it was beautiful, and it was like a one-time only place that you can go and visit, so like finish all of your side quests and buy all of the things that you want, but I just thought it was great. The city that was surrounded in water.
Ooh. So like the endgame city kind of thing?
Pretty much, yeah.
It's the start of the endgame.
Yeah.
I did want to mention that Tom brought up Super Mario RPG, but didn't mention what is my favorite area in the game. And I think it's because it's such a left turn. The final, well, I guess the penultimate dungeon, if you want to consider the factory the last area, is, I don't even know what it's called, but once you clear Bowser's Castle, you fight the giant sword on top of Bowser's Castle called Exor, and then it pulls you into this area that is so different from the entirety of the rest of the game. It's dark blue. There's this weird, like, grainy wave feature all over it. The music is, again, like, we've talked about maybe doing an episode on game music, but it's really hard to do because we can't play any of it because we'd get, copyright strikes and or sued. But the music in this area is also extremely different from anywhere else in the game, which it all sounds, like Mario music, blah, blah, blah. But here, it's this weird industrial tone. If you know anything about music, it's in a 13/8 time signature, which is just, it's bonkers. There's like 2 songs that I know of besides that do it. One is by the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and the other is the Terminator theme. But, like, it's just, it's something that completely, like, lets you know, like, this is a very different part of the game, and you're in basically this barren alien land that does not belong in Mario World at all. And it's just so cool.
Is that not the factory?
It's like on the way to the factory, I guess.
It's kind of like the midway point thing, right?
Yeah, it's also where, spoilers, you find out that all the bosses you fought throughout the game were just made in a factory, and they're consistently churning out just versions of all these bosses that you've already faced early on.
Then you fight them again.
Yeah. It's just, I really wish that there was another, like, Square and Mario game, because it's so unique, even compared to all the other Mario RPGs that have come out afterwards, including, Paper Mario games, which are great, but not quite, it doesn't quite scratch that particular itch.
No. Well, I worry that Square's not in the same place that it used to be either, and it would never kind of recapture the same lightning in a bottle that happened back then.
I'm surprised Nintendo hasn't considered just going on their own with it.
Oh, I guess Paper Mario has.
Yeah.
I don't know. It goes to an extent. They probably also are just worried about, the legacy that's already out there with Super Mario RPG.
True.
So,
True.
I would throw out there one or two other games that I really caught my eye, that I was really thinking about when we brought this topic up. The first one should come as no surprise. This was the very, very first thing that I thought of with the topic.
Mass Effect.
Nope.
Oh.
I don't have Mass Effect on here at all, though Mass Effect does have some great levels. No, Tony Hawk's Underground.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Moscow stage, which I've probably talked about before on here, is absolutely iconic to me. I can still remember the infinite kind of grind and trick line that you could do there in a loop. I can still picture it in my mind of just going up the ramp, doing a trick, revert, go to the next one, grind the rail, keep jumping and doing your dark slides so that you don't fall off your balance, go back down the ramp, go up the other ramp. I wouldn't even say it's the prettiest level in the game, but it was like the level that everyone played online. It was the competitive go-to, and it offered you the biggest point potential. So the other two, I'm going to start with one that I've brought up before, and then I'm going to go to one that I've never talked about before. But the first one, of course, Wolfenstein 3D, killing 3D Robot Hitler. The level was like Hitler's bunker, and there was Robot Hitler, and you blast him in the face with a machine gun until he's dead. And if you don't love killing Hitler, my God, you're not American. And then the next one, have any of you played the game Cold Shadow?
I don't
even heard of it?
No. I don't think I've heard of it.
This was a PC Super Nintendo game loosely based on Donald Duck being a ninja. So
okay.
he was actually called Maui Mallard in it, and he was like a detective that had a Hawaiian shirt on, and he had a gun that would shoot these bugs, and you could get different types, and they would fire differently. But he was investigating something on like a Hawaii kind of island, so it had a very tropical vibe, very cartoony, totally had all the Disney vibes, looked like Donald Duck, and then at a certain point, he got infused with this tiki yin-yang power that allowed him to turn into a ninja with a staff that had like a wrap around his eyes, like a bandana wrap around. And you would whack things with the staff, and you could swing with the staff, and you had to collect tokens to keep this power active. Well, there's one level you would get to, and I don't remember any reason for this, but you were getting constantly assailed by other duck ninjas that were all varying degrees of colors, and they had different powers, like one could shoot fire, all this kind of stuff. And you just had to ward them off and beat them until you kind of like proved yourself as the Kung Fu master. And just being in that tiki environment, swinging around, fighting all the ninjas. Like, if you're 7 years old in 1996, it doesn't get much better than that, all right? I'm just telling you, it was so much fun. And anyone that hasn't played Cold Shadow, even just for that level, I so encourage it. It's just so much fun. I don't know how well it's
What's
aged,
crazy
I'll
to
say that
me
much.
is the fact that we've been talking about 40 minutes now, or maybe 30 minutes on the topic, and I don't even think we scratched the surface of the amount of levels and locations and certain moments of games that just like sing out to you for years and years on end, and all kinds of games too. So that's so cool to me that game developers are able to keep leaving that imprint. I mean, a lot of them, it sounds like, come from our childhood, which makes sense. It stands out more, but that means that games that are coming out now for children, they're gonna have the same kind of feeling, I imagine, that we have in 10 or 20 years.
I hope so.
I hope so too. It's funny because I remember our first episode, Tom, you brought up the topic of vibrancy in games and how games were getting kind of dull. I hope that kids 10 to 15 or maybe 8 to 15 are still going to have those games that come out that they're like, oh my God, 20 years ago, still remembering it.
The more I've looked around recently, the more I've seen more vibrant games starting to pop back up, especially on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think maybe I did the prophecy thing with the first game, the way that we have throughout this podcast.
Very nice.
Well, unfortunately, even though, as Fleming said, like, we've barely scratched the surface, I have plenty of other things I could talk about, but we're about out of time. So
I didn't even talk about Final Fantasy.
No, I didn't either.
Megan brought it up, and I wanted to go into more detail, but we'll just have to save it for another time.
I forgot about the main one that I wanted to speak of, but we'll do it. Nope,
do it.
Too late. Too late.
All right.
Yep.
Well, this will just have to be a topic that we come back around to every once in a while. And, I think, obviously, to our listeners, if you have any thoughts on the subject and would like to tell us about them, please go ahead. You can find our social medias at Facebook, which is JoyPad Pod, Instagram, JoyPad Pod, and also Twitter, JoyPad Pod. And on YouTube, we are JoyPad. There is no pod after it. We keep plugging the YouTube, but guys, I've been so busy that I just haven't been able to produce content. One day, it'll come back, and it'll be there.
Ask me how much content I've produced for YouTube.
How much, Tom?
0. Apologize more.
In it. You've been there. You've been
true.
there with Diablo. But
No, Pinto's done a ton of work to create content for that channel, so do not apologize for anything. Do it when you have time.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to add? Did I miss anything?
Like, subscribe, leave us a review.
Do all those things.
Spoofy, boofy,
tell us what
magoofy.
your iconic levels are. Maybe we'll talk about them.
Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll tell you they're awful and you're wrong.
Yeah.
If
fine,
someone
too.
says, I want to be the guy, sorry.
I want to be the guy has interesting level
No,
design.
we're not going into that this one.
No,
point.
no.
It's awful to play, but it's interesting.
Another episode.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening. I'm going to leave it to my co-host to end the episode.
All right, folks. I'm going to ask one favor of you. Can you stay joyful for me? Can you do that? Can you stay joyful?
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.